Hello everyone, how are you all doing? I hope you're well and I hope you're ready to dive into a story about the supernatural. Probably looked really dumb doing that just now, but oh well. Before I kick off, just a reminder that if you are subscribed, please be sure to click the notification bell or YouTube will never let you know when I upload new videos. And as subscribers, I'd love you to be able to see my content. Now that I've said that, onto today's video, and also comment down below if you recognize where my necklace is from, if any of you can figure that out. Haven't worn this in like nearly 2 years, so I felt it was time to pull it out of the jewelry box. So comment if you recognize it. So just for a little bit of fun. So last year, shortly after the release of the supernatural horror film Winchester, I decided to do a video where I talk about the true story behind Sarah Winchester and the Winchester Mystery House, as much of what was known about her was unsubstantiated. I really enjoyed making that video, and since then I've wanted to do a video about the Annabelle doll. Now, with a third highly unnecessary film about the doll being released this year, I figured now was the perfect time to tell you the proper story of Annabelle, also considering Lorraine Warren, who is one of the people that the films are the main subject of. She just passed away at the age of 92, and being a fan of her and the work of her and her husband, it really made me want to get off my butt and make this video. So this story is the one that, for reasons I don't understand, the films have not depicted. I'm not asking anyone to believe the story, I just find them fascinating to talk about and I enjoy them, so I'm sharing them with you, so let's begin. In Connecticut in 1968, nurses and friends Donna Jennings, 25, and Angie Stapleton, roughly the same age, are living together in a small apartment. For them, life is pretty standard. Angie is engaged to a man by the name of Lou Carlo, and so for the most part, everyone was living a decent life. On Donna's 24th birthday, her mother bought her a Raggedy Ann doll, a novelty gift that Donna found quite cute. But as soon as Donna received this gift is when the lives of Donna, Angie, and Angie's fiance Lou began to take a change. Shortly after Donna received the doll, she began to notice strange occurrences. Every morning before leaving for work, she would place her new doll on her bed, sitting up looking neat and proper. But in the evening, when she would return home, the doll will have changed positions, such as the legs would be crossed at the ankles and the arms would also be in a different position. This continued to happen each day, and Angie noticed it too, but that was not all. Other times they would come home and find the doll in an entirely different room in the apartment. They leave it in Donna's room and come home to find it in the living room. After a week of this, they became suspicious. From the moment occurrences began, Lou was instantly on edge and had a distrust for the doll. He didn't believe it was a prank, but that something bad was going on. He had instant hate for the doll, and as it would turn out, the feeling was mutual. Lou would encourage the women to ignore it and get rid of the doll, but they refused. Lou from this moment on began to have horrible nightmares all about the doll, and he was convinced the doll was doing this to him and he wasn't wrong. Events around the apartment began to escalate. The women one day would come home to find the doll kneeling in a chair by the front door, but this was not the only reason they were alarmed. The Raggedy Ann doll is a doll made purely of stuffing. It has no joints or structure that makes it stable. It's quite a flimsy toy, meaning it is incapable of kneeling. When the women tried to make it kneel, it would simply collapse. So they asked themselves what was making it do that. At the same time, the young women would find notes left for them around the house, notes that read, "Help us" and "Help Lou," and other indecipherable messages. The handwriting appeared childlike, and it was always written in pencil on parchment paper, but when the women would search the apartment for the same type of paper, or even a pencil for that matter, no such items existed in their home. Being rational young women, their first instinct was that someone was playing a prank. Someone must have been entering the house and moving the doll and leaving the notes. So they began to perform tests to test their theories and sanity. Donna would be sure to position the doll a certain way so she would be extra aware if the position had changed, which it always did. The women also began moving furniture and rugs and leaving marks on the doors or windows which would tell them if someone was breaking in, but their tests proved that no one was breaking in. As time went on, things got more strange and more disturbing. One evening, the women came home to find what appeared to be blood on the back of the doll's hand and 3 dots of blood on its chest. It didn't seem as though things were slowing down. During Christmas, a chocolate boot was left for the women on top of their stereo with no idea where it came from, and at one time they saw an item levitate on its own with no one around it to make that happen. This came much later, of course. After 4 to 6 weeks of non-stop occurrences that they could not explain, the women decided to contact a medium for answers. A medium came to their apartment and performed a seance. During the seance, the medium contacted the spirit that resided in the home. Through the medium, the spirit told the young women that her name was Annabelle Higgins, and when she was 7 years old, she had died on that property. She would play in the fields that existed there before the building was built. She was lonely and wanted friends and for someone to love her, and felt the women would be understanding, so she began moving the doll around. She asked the women if she could live with them and move into the doll. The young nurses, saddened by the idea of the spirit of a young girl being so sad and lonely, gave her permission to do so, and from that day on, they called the doll Annabelle. While occurrences seemed fairly benign for the young women, what was happening to Lou was a whole other story. As I said, Lou had instant hate for that doll, and it was mutual. Not only were his nightmares reoccurring, but at one point he described an almost out-of-body experience, where he awoke from a deep sleep to see the Annabelle doll climb onto his chest and attempt to strangle him to death. Lucky for him, he managed to get the doll off him, but his problems were just beginning. Sometime later, and this event is what led to the Warrens to be called in, Lou was visiting his fiancée Angie at her apartment. It was 10 or 11 p.m. and the two were reading over maps as Lou was going on a trip the next day. Suddenly, the peaceful quiet was disturbed as they heard loud sounds coming from Donna's room that sounded like a break-in. Lou quietly made his way to Donna's room to investigate. He waited for the noise to stop and then opened the door and walked in. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary except the Annabelle doll had been tossed in the corner of the room. Lou made his way over to the doll to examine it, and as he approached it, he had the strong feeling that someone was behind him. As he turned to look, though he saw nothing, he screamed out in pain and clutched his chest, causing Angie to run to his side. She found him on the floor, scared and in pain, with bloodstains on his shirt. After taking him to the living room, she examined his chest to see what appeared to be claw marks, 7 in total. 3 vertical and 4 horizontal. While the cuts were authentic and did bleed, Lou described the sensation as if they were burned onto him. Donna and Angie had seen the marks for themselves and seen the blood, yet by the next morning the marks were half faded, and by the day after that were completely gone as if nothing ever happened. Scared out of their minds and feeling as though there was a presence in the apartment, Donna and Angie made plans to move as soon as possible. It was at this point Donna reached out to an Episcopal priest named Father Higgins, someone she and Angie knew and trusted. Hearing their story and believing them and having suspicions of his own, Father Higgins contacted someone higher up in the church, a Father Cook. It was at this point a clergyman contacted the paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren, requesting their help on the matter. Ed and Lorraine set out and drove to Donna and Angie's, where they heard the story straight from the horse's mouth and recorded their interview as usual. During their meeting, Ed picked up on several red flags and made sure to ask them all the typical questions to determine whether it was possible that someone was messing with them or if any of the people involved had health issues. After assessing the situation, Ed Warren made it a point to let the women know that moving out would not fix their problems. While Lorraine, a clairvoyant and light trance medium, did a reading of the apartment, Ed was blunt and broke it down plainly. There was never an Annabelle. As Ed put it, you were duped. Through the information provided, Ed was able to determine that an inhuman spirit was at work in the apartment. It had intent, and the phenomena it described is not consistent with ghosts or human spirits. It is typically only experienced when an inhuman spirit is around, in other words, a demonic entity. Usually people are not bothered by inhuman demonic spirits. It is only once someone does something to let these forces in that things occur. Sadly for these women, while they made honest mistakes, they just so happened to make all the wrong ones. Ed discerned that Donna and Angie were experiencing the infestation stage of a demonic attack, where the ultimate goal is possession. The young women's first mistake was in giving the doll recognition. The entity in question moved the item around to get their attention, and once it had it, it got to work. Their next mistake was calling in a medium. Demons are pathological liars, hence why they are called Father of Lies. During the medium's trance, the entity used the medium as an instrument of communication and provided the women with false information to further manipulate them. Its ultimate goal at this moment was to gain the women's permission to invade their lives. In most cases, the demonic cannot insert itself into your life or even possess you without being granted permission first. The fact demons seek out consent already makes them less terrifying than most humans in my eyes, but I digress. Once the women gave Annabelle permission to live in the house and the doll, it had what it wanted and all bets were off. Had they not done this, their problems may not have been so severe. Ed continued to explain that the doll in question is not actually possessed, as demons cannot possess things, they possess people, and possessing these people was its ultimate goal. It moved the doll around to create the illusion that the doll was alive and further manipulate these innocent people. So why did Lou experience the worst of it? Lou wasn't fooled by the charade for a second, which made him a threat to the demon, so it had its sights set on him and wanted him out of the way. First it tried to strangle him. When that didn't work, it attacked him, leaving him with a symbolic claw mark, a mark the Warrens had seen in other demonic cases, a mark popularly known as the Mark of the Beast. Ed, being as blunt as usual, made a point to tell these young people they got off easy. Had they waited another week or two to contact help, they may very well have been killed. The Warrens contacted Father Cook, who was called over to perform a blessing, or in other words, an exorcism of the apartment. Lorraine's assessment revealed that she could sense a singular entity in the apartment at the time, and its behavior she deemed unpredictable and its presence very negative in nature. Ed trusted his wife, even stating, "Lorraine's an excellent clairvoyant and she's never been wrong about the nature of a spirit that's present." Father Cook performed the recitation of the exorcism blessing in every room of the apartment, which took roughly 5 minutes each time, as the Episcopal blessing is a 7-page document. It also differs from other exorcism rites. Rather than being designed to expel the evil entities from the dwelling, it is designed to fill the home with positive power and energy, or depending on what you believe, the power of God. After blessing the home and the people inside, the deed was done, and Lorraine was able to state that based on her examination, the apartment and people inside were free from the entity. Donna, Angie, and Lou thanked them for their help, and to be extra safe, Donna asked the Warrens to take the doll with them. But that's not where the story ends. Ed, being a seasoned demonologist, decided to err on the side of caution during his and his wife's journey home. After placing the doll in the back seat, Ed made a conscious decision to avoid taking the interstate home as a precaution in case the entity hadn't completely detached itself from the doll. Ed's instincts were right to make this decision. As soon as they set off, both Ed and Lorraine felt themselves at the mercy of something's hatred. As Ed drove past each dangerous curve in the road, his new car would stall, causing the power steering and brakes to fail. The vehicle repeatedly found itself on the verge of collision, and after it stalled a third time, Ed pulled the car over, went through his little kit, and grabbed a vial of holy water. He proceeded to splash the water on the doll in the sign of the cross. After this, they were able to safely travel home with no more disturbances, but things did not end there. Once the Warrens brought the doll home, a number of occurrences began and continued for the next few weeks. The doll would levitate right before Ed's very eyes. It would move around the house and appear in various rooms, though originally being locked in one singular room, and more phenomena continued. Wherever the doll would be in the house, a mysterious black cat would materialize, wander around as if observing and noting the things around it, especially items in Ed's office, then would return to the doll's side and dematerialize. They also caught on quickly to the fact the entity in question hated members of the clergy. During follow-ups with the priest involved in the case, Lorraine returned home one day to hear what she described as terrifying, loud, rolling growls that reverberated through the house. When she checked the messages on the answering machine, 2 were back-to-back calls from Father Hagen, the same priest who the young nurses contacted. In between his calls on the answering machine, Lorraine once again heard the very same loud growling she had heard in the house. On another occasion, a Catholic priest by the name of Father Jason Bradford, who was asking about the Annabelle doll, picked it up and offhandedly said, "You're just a rag doll, Annabelle, you can't hurt anything." With that, he tossed the doll onto a chair. Ed warned that he probably shouldn't have done that. Before leaving, Lorraine warned the priest to be careful while driving and to contact as soon as he made it back to the rectory. Sure enough, a few hours later, the priest called, asking Lorraine why she had warned him, to which she informed him that she had seen his car go out of control and his car having an accident. Lorraine's warnings were spot on and possibly saved the priest's life, as he informed her that she was right and that his brake system failed during his drive and he was almost killed in a traffic accident. His car was wrecked, but luckily, thanks to Lorraine's warning, he was unharmed. Later that year, during a social gathering at the Warrens, Ed and that same Father Jason went to the den for a chat. Coincidentally, the Annabelle doll had moved itself to that room the previous day. During their conversation, the priest sensed movement out the corner of his eye, and as that happened, a 24-inch long boar's tooth necklace above the 2 men exploded. Hearing the noise, the gatherers converged on the den. It so happened someone in the crowd snapped a photo, which when developed revealed 2 beacons of light right above the doll, both pointing in the direction of Father Jason Bradford. On a later occasion, a police officer who had contacted Ed for his thoughts on a case he was working was left alone for no more than 5 minutes, after which he was found white as a ghost, terrified, declaring the Annabelle doll was real. While he never divulged to the Warrens just what had happened to him, it had enough of an effect on this seasoned officer to make sure any future interactions with the Warrens was conducted at his office and not their home. It was even clear that the Warrens' tabby cat Marcy was positively terrified of the doll. Keep in mind the doll is still not possessed, but this entity has latched its negative energy to this doll, essentially giving it something to keep it grounded. It goes where the doll goes and it's not letting go. The Annabelle doll has since been locked up for the safety of others, and Lorraine at one point explained why that is. She stated, "Profane objects like the Annabelle doll have their own aura. When you touch them, your human aura mingles with theirs. This change immediately attracts spirits. It's almost like setting off a fire alarm." On occasions when Lorraine would have to move the doll herself, she would bless the doll and herself with holy water to prevent this from happening. Forewarned is forearmed, as they say. The Warrens kept the doll and many other objects as a protective measure. To destroy these items or get rid of them meant, as Ed described it, giving someone a loaded gun. You're putting that danger back out into the world, so it's better to keep it locked up and safe where it can't hurt anyone, though it certainly seemed to try. None of the Annabelle films to date have accurately depicted the real Annabelle case as it was known to those involved. While it appears this third installment is slightly closer to home, it takes place once Ed and Lorraine have come into possession of the doll, and from there it takes many liberties. The closest depiction of the Annabelle story can be found in the opening scene of the 2013 film The Conjuring, with some of the dialogue between Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga being very similar to what can be heard on Ed and Lorraine's recorded interview with Donna, Angie and Lou back in 1968. Although in this scene, character names were changed, such as Donna's name was now Debbie. And there you have it, the real story of the Annabelle doll. I'm still disappointed that we've had 3 Annabelle films and a slight mention of it in the beginning of the first Conjuring film, and yet none of them have decided to do the real Annabelle story. And again, if you don't believe in the story, that's perfectly fine, but these are people who, this supposedly happened to them. This is the story according to them, so I don't understand why you wouldn't do that story, why instead you would make up a completely fictional story, or just with made up people and made up characters that don't exist, to create how this crazy backstory to this demon that they have made up. It's just it's weird, and I thought Annabelle sucked, and the sequel, as I've usually used the description of, it's like trying to steer the Titanic away from the iceberg. It tried its best, and I was really impressed with how hard it tried to, save a sinking ship, but it can't be done. There are too many plot holes, and by plot holes I mean inconsistencies. You have backtracked, you have caved in on yourself. It's just a mess, and even just from watching the trailer to the new film, I'm looking at it going, oh my god, I can see the inconsistency just from the trailer alone. So that film's gonna give me a headache, and it's probably gonna leave me ranting as much as I did with The Nun. So it's a shame that kind of so far the only as close to the real story as we've seen is just that one couple minute clip at the start of The Conjuring, and I would have preferred to see the real thing. I mean, sure, they could have still taken liberties, amped it up, but I just would have preferred it take place in reality a bit more, because I feel that in the Conjuring universe, the films that are the most successful in my eyes are the ones that actually sit down and talk to the people that this happened to and say, okay, tell me your story, tell me what happened, and we're going to make a film based around that, instead of just going, okay, we're just going to completely make something up and we're not going to talk to anybody. There's a difference between the two. When you go, realism route, it's more impactful, it's also grounded in something that with relatable characters and all that stuff. And then when you go in this other direction, it's like, Really? Really? So, anyway, but nevertheless, that is it for today's video. I mean, it took me like a year to finally do this. I got off my butt and I did it. So I'm really happy to have finally made this video because I was really happy with the work I did on my last video about the real story of Sarah Winchester and the Winchester Mystery House. There will be a link to that at the end of this video, so please go watch that, tell me what you think. But if you've watched this one, then please comment down below and tell me what you thought of this video. Like the video, if give it a thumbs up if you liked it, and if you're not subscribed already, then please subscribe, and please, like I said, hit the notification bell. That part is crucial. Like, that's like the most crucial one. Like, you don't even have to comment, you don't even have to like, just hit the bell. Just the bell. That's it. I'm getting to a point where I'm begging now, but you know what? You don't get anywhere in life if you don't ask for things. Sometimes you gotta bite the bullet, and I'm biting the bullet. May have fractured a tooth, but whatever. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and also let me know if maybe you want me to do another video similar to this, maybe on another case done by the Warrens or something else. Either way, let me know, and until next time, bye!